Oh, welcome back my friends for another fun reloading video. Today we're working again with the 350 Legend. We're going to be covering a lot of ground here. I've got 4 different bullets to test. We're using Shooter's World Heavy Pistol and CCI number 400 small rifle primers. I have approximately 19 pieces of brand new Starline brass left to use. I'm going to full length size them really quickly, and then we're going to trim it and finish prepping them before we load anything up, just to make sure everything is completely uniform and good to go. So let's get to it. So I've got some left here to size. Again, I just used a lanolin alcohol mixture. Spray it on, you let it evaporate, and then you're left with this nice natural moisturizer for your fingers. Wonderful stuff here. But anyways, it works just great for a case lubricant as well. Let me finish these up real quick and I'll see you over at the trimming and prep station. So we are here at the Frankfurt Arsenal Case Prep Center. I have my Lee case length gauge, shell holder here. We'll clean up the case mouth, and then if I had any dirty brass, we have new brass today, I could be cleaning the primer pocket here or reaming out a primer pocket if I had new brass from the range or something like that. But right now, we're just going to trim, chamfer, deburr, and we will be good here to go real quick. So as you know, you just get your shell holder set. And we were a bit long there, eh? Okay. Wow, but still lubricated, so it's kind of slippery, you know. Jesus. This shell holder seems a little troublesome. But we only have a few cases, so we'll have to fight through it and persevere. Okay, that's annoying. Here we go. Oh yeah, every time. Maybe less pressure on it initially. Now that these are all purdied up and uniformed and trimmed all good like, time to expand our case mouths just a little bit, and then we will prime shortly after that. The Lee Universal Case Expanding Die. This is far superior than any of the included powder through expanding dies that Lee has ever provided. So I prefer this die for any kind of expanding needs on any cases that I ever encounter. And that's, of course, just while I'm working on a single stage. Otherwise, on the Dillon over there, they have their own powder through funnel-y things, and those are just perfect. But here we're using the Lee Universal Case Expanding Die, and I love it. And we're all set up here. A slight flare, but I've tested our cast bullets, and they fit in just perfect. So we're going to run these real quick and get on with it. So next we have our Lee Ram Prime installed, and we need 19 primers, and that's just a number that's going to make my head want to explode. So we're just going to hold on to this last one and try to, I don't know, let's just dump it and see what happens. Oh yeah, come on. Okay, now just need to loosen up. Okay. 19 primers. Okay, we're good. And now we're ready to load here. And we'll just load them up here. Very nice. There we are, beautiful Starline brass. With our CCI primer up in there, yeah buddy. So we're all primed up and ready to go. We're gonna start throwing some powder, and I'll do each bullet separately and then seat that group of bullets, and then we'll start with the next bullet and go from there. So here we are at everyone's favorite dirty scale, and we're just pouring some powder for our first bullet, which is going to be our Lee 358 150, and it came out at 153 grains, and we sized it to 356. And I'm pretty much making up my data. Hopefully it's safe. Come on, Trickler. Gotta get her all warmed up, you see. There she be. Beautiful. Look at our first charge there, folks. And we need a funnel, of course. That guy's too small. We need purple guy. There we go. And how I came up with this charge is I'm using a lighter bullet, and I'm using the same charge as I would for a heavier bullet. So lighter bullet means less pressure. It'll generally take up less case capacity, thus less pressure as well. So I'm just going to try 5 of these and we'll see what happens. And yeah, I haven't even really shown you the bullets. This is the Lee 358 150, 153 grains. That is Eastwood Signal White, and then the Ford Blue kind of mixed in with some Signal White for a second coat there. And then again, we're sized to 356. So we'll see what we get here. So I'm not quite decided on a seating depth for this one yet. I'll have to see where it, whether it plunks in the gauge and what likes to be fed out of the magazine. There we go, some super fine trickling. And we're about a tenth of a tenth over, so whatever. That's pretty close, right? We'll be okay just for testing some shenanigans here. You know, this is just a 150 grain cast load, which, you know, is just going to be a plinking thing mostly. So I don't need the most velocity out of this or anything like that. In fact, it might perform better slow. So I should see if this functions and then do a backwards ladder test and see how that works. So these are our 2 seating depths we're going to try. The one on the left is at the top groove, and then the one on the right I'm going to bring down just a bit, and we'll see what that looks like and whether or not it's going to plunk into our gauge, and then we'll see if it even feeds off the magazine. So a couple different things we can be testing here today. So there we go, that looks a little better. You can see our ring from our seating stem there. Not much we can do about that with just the standard Lee kit, but I'm going to try 1 at this depth and then the other 4 at this seating depth. And we're going to go from there once I get all the powder thrown. So if anyone's curious, our case fill looks like we're maybe right in here. So we'll compare that to this. With the bottom of our bullet, we still have a little bit of wiggle room. You can hear it shaking in the case that I've already seated. So we still have a little bit of room to play with. So we should be good as far as pressure goes. And especially with that longer seating depth, there should be even more room and less pressure involved there. So here's our overall length, just roughly. This one is right at 2 inches, 2.0. And then of course we'll have a variance in our powder coatings and such, but 1.99, 2.01. And then this long one here, 2.128 overall. And I think we're going to have enough, neck tension here, no doubt. But whether or not it feeds any better or worse, we will see. If it works, it'll give us more case capacity. If we were wanting to chase velocity, we could really cram a lot more powder in there. But otherwise, I'm just going to see which one feeds better, and we're going to go from there. Our next bullet here, this is the 358 158 RF sent into the channel by viewer named Chuck. Thanks again, Chuck. I'm going to try these out today in the 350 Legend. We've sized them to 356. And this is going to be our second bullet, again with 22 grains of Shooter's World Heavy Pistol as well. Oh, 21, getting close already. Wow, 21 and a half. We'll trickle up to the top there. There we are. We'll just give it a bump and see where it lands. Just a hair short, a little more there. Oh, it's good enough for science. Again, I'll just mark our case capacity on there and see our fill. I think our powder is roughly right in here. So we'll seat our bullet and see how much fill we're taking up. I could test 2 seating depths with this one as well, but I think we'll get pretty good function with the first line here, almost. Okay, I'll get this one close, but here we are. I wonder if that'll feed off of our magazine, huh? Or it could stick out further here at this other crimp groove, or really anywhere in between, because I'm not crimping into the groove with this case because it's head spacing off of the mouth. So I could go anywhere from here to here. I wouldn't want to get any longer than this, just so I have sufficient neck tension. We're going to go just a hair deeper here and see what we end up with. So right now, we're right at about 2.1, which should be just fine. Once we get it crimped, we'll see if we can do the plunk test, and then we'll try and feed one off the magazine as well. But I'm going to get 5 more loaded up. Sorry, I'll get 4 more loaded up, and we will continue on. So here's these 5 with the Lee 358 158 RF, weighing right at 161 grains, and again 22 grains of Shooter's World Heavy Pistol. And next we're on to the NOE 360 185 hollow points. So here's a look at our NOE 360 185 HP. These weigh 172 grains. I picked out 5 out of the bunch that were all the same weight. Look at those beautiful hollow points, nice and wide. These are gas checked, and these were sent into the channel by CW Longshot. So thank you so much, Mr. CW. I appreciate these as well. But we're going to be using the same charge again of 22 grains of Shooter's World Heavy Pistol. And this should be the same weight as the Hornady Factory soft point loads that we've been playing with. So up to this point, we shouldn't be experiencing any extra pressure. So we'll see here. So as you guessed it, I've never used this bullet before. So I'm going to try 2 different seating depths with this one as well. We're going to go right up to the last groove for 2 of them. And then for 3 of them, we're going to go out to the second to last groove. And I'll show you here what I mean in just a second. As soon as we get our 22 grains. Beautiful. Again, same case fill with our 22 grains. And let's come over here and get seated. Again, new bullet. We need to come all the way out. We'll put our case in here. And so with our bullet here, I'm going to try 3 of them down here at the second line, and then 2 up at the top there. So it'll be all the way seated as deep as we should be going. And we actually made contact with it all the way out. I'm going to hang off for a second for going any deeper and wait till we get another one seated. But as long as this one isn't over 2.26, yeah, 2.15, we're going to try them out here for 3 shots, and then 2 shots we're going to try at that second line. So I've got these 5 all done here. On the right, you can see our longer seating depth, and on the left, you see the one all the way down at that last groove. They both have room and space for powder to be moving in there when I shake them, so should not have an issue with pressure, but we should be able to figure out which ones are going to feed off of our magazines more effectively, hopefully. And we have one more bullet to go after this. All right, folks, we have one bullet left. That's going to be our Lee 358-200. These are sized to 3.56. And we are going to be using 20 grains of our Shooter's World heavy pistol. So here's our big old 205 grain chonker, seated up to that last groove there, something like that. We could try it out anywhere between here and here as well if we have any feeding issues, so we can extend that out if we need to, which will also give us more case capacity, which could either lower or increase pressure depending if we want to add more powder to it. So we're going to try it down here with all 4 of our shots, and again down at 20 grains. And we're picking 20 grains because the bullet's roughly 10% heavier. So I'm going to subtract roughly 10% of the powder from the other charge, which is probably a really stupid, unscientific way to do it. But from my limited research with the powder and the such and the things, we're going to try to not blow off our faces and be okay with 20 grains, eh? So here are our 4 205 grain round nose bullets loaded up here. We're going to crimp everything and make sure we pass our chamber gauge, and then we will get these out to the range. And I just wanted another quick look at our beautiful lineup here. Look at that, isn't that amazing? Wow! I sure do love flavor. I hope, half of these work. So here we are at our Lee factory crimp die. We haven't got it to make contact yet, or rather we just barely are touching. But we're gonna come down here, and we're not trying to squeeze the bullet or the case into the bullet. We're just getting rid of that flare that we put in so that we can get our bullet seated. So all we need to do is get it to barely fall in and out of our gauge. So we just need to crimp it a little bit at a time until we get it in there. Oh, buddy. We can see our little line where the factory crimp die is, but you can see that the case is still straight, not rolled into the bullet there. All right. Oh boy. Okay. I think we're in business here. One more at the different seating depth. And you'll see that I wrote on them with Sharpie. We have 22 grain Shooter's World heavy pistol, and this one says long for long seating depth. And here's a lineup of our first projectile, 153 grains. Let's see how they fit in the magazine. Here we are seated in the magazine. I put the long one on the top and the shorter 4 underneath that. So let's see if they cycle through the gun here. I hope I don't screw anything up. Here we are with our magazine loaded up. I'm just going to reach around and hit the bolt release, and we'll see if we chamber the first one here. And that looks like a success. Let me see if we can extract. Ooh, it's a little tough. Okay. Slight mortar, but the next one fed just fine. I didn't actually mean to release it, but now the second one is in. Let's take a look at this long bullet here and see what might have caught. Okay, so first of all, this is a 3.58 bullet squeezed down to 3.56. And it looks like we had a little nick right there. And that could have caught the edge of the magazine where it's flat and people tell you to trim it off. So that could be caught right there. I'm going to take the magazine out and see if the shorter bullet had the same issue. So we'll eject our magazine and see if we can eject this one. That one didn't have any issue. Nothing wrong with it at all. And we don't, well, there's a little bit of that right there as well, but not as bad as the long one. Okay, cool. Glad we tested that. Should I try the other 3 through the magazine to see if the short ones are good to go? Let's do it. So they all fed through just perfectly, but we can see we've got some boogers up here and little scratches and stuff like that. As far as function, they all came in and out, except this first one was a little sticky. I'm pretty certain if I shot it, it would have been just fine and I wouldn't have had to mortar it out. But the 4 short ones were perfect, so that's good to note. I'm still going to leave this one here and see if we have different pressure signs when they're being fired. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and then we'll function check everything at the end. But we're still going to have to make sure that we plunk here. That one's just perfect. We're not below headspace, and certainly not above it. Good thing we uniformed everything this time. As you can see when I set it up, it's crimping every single one of them evenly now that we trimmed everything, and we're not chasing different lengths of cases, which would end up with different amount of neck tension, and so on and so forth. So those were 3 long ones. Here's our 2 short ones for the 170 grain hollow points. I gotta try those. Beautiful. One more. Perfect. Now we have our 162 grain. Oh yeah, there we are. $162. Oh, just a little sticky, but came right out. Maybe there's a little booger inside the gauge there, a little speck of powder or something. Yeah, that one's good. And I have a feeling all these are going to chamber just perfectly. I'm not so sure about the hollow points though, or the 205s. Those could get a little dingy getting caught on the mouth of the magazine. Oh, yep, gotta try it. Yeah, we're good. Look at that. Just enough to close the expansion up. Oh, golly. We didn't booger anything up, don't worry. Last one, and I still need to gauge that third one. Yep, perfect. Right in, right out. Beautiful. So we're going to put away our crimping die, get rid of our shell holder, and then we will function test these through the magazine. And once I learn my overall lengths that I can function, then I can start trying a whole bunch of different powders and seeing what works in the gun aside from just finding an overall length that will cycle. So here's our 205 grain. These are seated all the way out at 2.187-ish, somewhere in there, depending on how thick the powder coat is. But I'm only going to function test 2 of them. These are all the same seating depth, so that should be all it takes to get a quick reference. So let's try these out here. Again, we'll just close our bolt here. Perfect. See if we eject. A little sticky. Okay. A little bit of mortaring required. And then I'll put the bolt release back on. So we don't, yeah, let me just pull the mag. There we go. So, here's the feed lip scratching on the edge of the case. There's the getting hung up on the magazine. There's a little bump from the feed ramp. Let's see if we actually shrank it all by jamming it into there really fast. And yeah, it actually looks like we lost a couple of maybe 5 thousandths. We were at 2.187-ish, I thought. So that could be something to be aware of. Let me see if our second one decides to get jammed as well, just for jokes, and we'll measure before and after. 2.183, 2.183, 2.184. Okay. And now it'll be feeding off of the other side of the magazine. The first one was over here. Now we're going to feed off of this side of the mag. And close the bolt. Went in with ease. And okay, actually, that one seemed to release much easier. Where did it go? So here's that second one we tried. Again with the little nick right there. And is there anything from the feed ramp on this guy? Not much on the feed ramp. And we still fit in our chamber gauge. We still plunk in and out, so I think these are going to be good to go. Let's see if we stretched out or shrank it all. Maybe 2 thousandths. We were at 2.184, I thought. So we might have lost 3 thousandths there to setback. That's interesting and also noteworthy, so let's keep that in mind. So these are the 158 grains, and they're rather short as well, just like the other 153 grains. These are right above 2 inches on the dot. We could seat them further there and put it exactly 2 if we wanted, for one reason or the other. But we're going to try 2 of these and see if we get any setback. And okay, this first one is at 2.08. Let's see if anything happens. Okay, this is at 2.08 inches before feeding test. Right in, no problem. It actually came out no problem. We'll let this one go. Perfect, right in. And right out as well, locks back. Let's inspect our brass. So, I don't know which one was first or second, but we had a little deformation on the nose here from feeding. But so far, these, I believe, are our best performers, so that's good to know. Again, with that trademark little nick from the edge of the magazine. Again, we can probably smooth that out, no problem. And this one actually looks pretty good other than that little bit there. The bullet, just a little scrape. And these are for plinking anyways, or short range hunting, depending on the hollow points or not. So far so good. These are all functioning just fine. And we'll get on with it here with our last bullet, which is actually the hollow point. Let's have a look. Also, before I forget, it looks like we didn't experience any setback with these. It's at 2.09. And this one is also right at 2.010. So these are perfect. No setback at all, actually. So maybe those have a little more surface area inside the case, which would give us more neck tension at this point. Who knows? Let's take a look at our hollow points. So these are all very similar. Apparently, this hollow point, 170 grains, is right at 2.014-ish. So that's our short seating depth. And then we'll see our long one here. This one is at 2.125. So let's try the long one first and then the short one and see how we are able to function off the magazine. Long seated bullet test coming off the magazine. That one seemed a little bit rough. Let's see what happens. Okay. A little jammy here. Let's give her the old mortaring. Okay, I'll lock her back. And then we'll try the short one here. Short seating depth, 170 grain hollow point test. That one seemed a lot better, much smoother with the short one. And it even comes off and out with no hesitation. Beautiful. So our long one here was 2.014-ish. It looks like we actually grew a little bit. Maybe 2.015, 2.017. 2.017, it looks like we grew just a tad. No problem on the short one there. But here's our long one, which seemed a little stickier going in. 2.11, 2.114. I don't think we grew it all, but I see a nice little oopsie on the brass there. We can see that glare. Our bullet might have hit there on the nose. So it seems like our shorter seating depth is going to work better for these, but we'll have to see which one shoots better as well. There we have it, folks. That was our preliminary loading of these 4 different bullets here. We're trying to cover a lot of ground, collect a lot of data as far as what's going to function, what feeds in our gun, what the magazine can tolerate, all that fun stuff. So let's get it out to the range and see if we can put it on paper, see if we don't blow anything up, and see if we can get some data here to actually talk about. And welcome back from the range here, folks. We have certainly plenty of information here now. Some good, some bad stuff to share, so let's hop right into it. We will start with our Lee 358-150. They were coming in at 153 grains. And we actually have some chronograph data here to share as well. 5 shots, average of 22.44. Extreme spread of 124. Standard deviation of 55. Ouch. Wow. Great work there, dummy. Good numbers. Anyways, here's our brass. And that was obviously a pretty weak charge for this weight of bullets, so we might be able to play around with that. I think we will be able to, because let's see our notes here. It says 5 of 5 for feeding, cycling, etc. Soft impulse, not so smoky compared to a couple of the others, and the primer's starting to flatten, but not quite flat. So let's take a look at that here. So here's a look at our primers. Fairly flat. They're on the flat side, I'm not gonna lie. We don't have any cratering or any marks on our brass, however. So we're right on the edge of pressure, but we can probably back it down and still get something that'll function, as well as find some accuracy and maybe some better deviations in there with the velocity. Here's a nice little mark on that one. This piece looks fine. And these two look fine as well. So yes, flattening of the primers. They are starting to flatten, but I think we can, I'm going to do sort of a reverse Satterley load here with these and see if we can find some velocity nodes as well as where we stop getting function. And then I'll, load up some 5-shot groups around those velocity nodes and see if it's a forgiving plinking sort of load where I can just throw it through the powder measure and we'll have some sort of consistency. We'll have to see. Coming up next, our second bullet here was the Lee 358-158RF. They were dropping at 161 grains, size 356. We had an average of 3 shots here, 2150, spread of 90, and SD of 39. We did take 5 shots. We had 2 errors on the chronograph. However, 5 of 5 were successful with cycling and feeding, locking back the mag. All good stuff with this bullet here. In fact, I liked it so much, we went ahead and did a thing, and now this is here. So this could be a fun round to load a whole bunch of. And here's a look at our brass on those. You can see much rounder than with our lighter bullet we tried first. But again, we can just dial in those loads with a little bit of work. These were pretty soft shooting, very mild recoil, everything functioned, and they were very soft on our brass. And so far today, this is going to be my choice as far as what was most successful, but we still have some other stuff to look at and some other good stuff to talk about here. So up next is the only issue we had all day, and it's completely my fault having gone back and watching the footage. These rounds didn't even chamber when I tested it in the magazine. The short ones obviously did. I got to test those, but the 3 longer ones did not chamber as previously seen before I even went to the range. But I'm a huge idiot, and I'm sure some of you guys were yelling at your screen going, hey, it didn't work. So I was sitting there bashing on my my forward assist, hoping it would work, but they did not. So we did get 2 shots here on the chronograph. These are 172 grains. Again, 22 grains of the Shooter's World Heavy Pistol. That's the same load we're using over here with these Hornady 170 grains. These 2 shots averaged 2167, extreme spread of 40, and SD of 20. Not great numbers for 2 shots, but let's take a look at our brass. Any other notes here, actually? Only the short ones fed. The longs wouldn't chamber. It was dirty. We have some flat primers we're going to take a look at, and it was very smoky. It actually was very smoky indeed. So let's look at these flat primers and I'll actually talk about it here. So that is what we call a flat primer. We can see it just starting to crater, but what we have here are larger problems than the primer. Look right here on our case. I'm pretty much a dummy, but I'm also pretty sure this is the beginning of case head separation. So that's not good. We don't have any other marks on our case head, but that is no good right there. I was feeling around inside of it though, and I don't feel anything on the inside. Traditionally, you're supposed to feel, like out here, I can feel this lip with my tool. I don't get the same sort of feeling on the inside. Even if I go all the way around, there's nothing in there. And on our second case, not quite as bad, but you can see where that line is starting. And also a pretty flat primer there. So this was really stupid to pick a charge that's within a grain of the maximum for this bullet to try on a bullet that I've never shot before in my life. Totally stupid. First of all, I didn't catch that these didn't even chamber. So then I took them to the range like a dummy, trying that again. And I picked a charge for a bullet that's not even the same bullet. Not even the same amount of case capacities. All kinds of stupid stuff. All user error. And I'm probably going to just throw at least this piece of brass out because I don't want that in my rotation. That does not look safe to me, and that's on me. I'm a dummy. Don't do what I do at home. So I'm going to have to end up pulling these, and that's all there is to it. The case is still good. The powder is still good. Primers are still good. But yeah, that's on me. I'm going to have to pull those and probably start over with whatever I was doing right here. And when we get back to our notes here, dirty, flat primer, and smoky. Yeah, smoke, that's what happens when your lead loads are way too hot. They get very smoky. Flat primer. That's when it's way too dang hot. Dirty, when your lead loads are too hot. All these things come with being a dummy. So again, be very careful with what you're doing, and if you're going to make up your own data, only do maybe one or so to test them, and then look at them very carefully as well. Because I shot this one first, and it did not have the issue that this one had. So I didn't see it. I fired off the second one, and that one obviously looks way worse. So I'm glad that these didn't work, but I was going to try these next because I'm thinking, well, it's seated out further, there's more case capacity, there's going to be less pressure, so I should go ahead and try those as well. Lucky for me, they didn't even chamber, so I'm going to trash this project for this bullet, and we're going to have to start over there later on. Lastly, I had 4 cases left because we only had 19 total, if we remember. The Lee 358-200 round flat nose. They came out at 205 grains, size down to 356, 2 coats of the powder coating. I used 20 grains of Shooter's World Heavy Pistol. We got all 4 shots on the chronograph. Our average was 1873, spread of 70, standard deviation of 26. 4-4 cycled and fed, magazine locked back, round-ish primers, and medium recoil. So that sounds like some pretty good stuff. Let's have a look at our brass here. So yeah, that's what I would call round-ish primers. They're just on the verge of starting to flatten out there. And our brass looks pretty good as well. I'm probably going to back down maybe a grain or 2 or 3 or 4 and do sort of like a backwards Satterley method and see if we have any velocity or accuracy nodes by working down to both save powder and preserve our brass life at the same time. So I think this was a good starting point. We had the best numbers on the chronograph as far as spreads and deviations between all of our other loads so far. So I think we're on to something with this bullet. So definitely more to come with the 358-200 here. And lastly, I also ran some of these over the chronograph just because that's what I've been loading and playing with so far. I was shooting it like accurate number 9. I believe Hornady lists its maximum at 22.7 or 22.9. So I ended up at 22 grains with a decent little accuracy node sort of thing. But I never got any chronograph data until now. So I shot 6 of these over the chronograph that day. And here's what we got. 6 shots, average of 21.28, extreme spread 114, standard deviation of 47, and also power factor 361, 1700 foot-pounds at the muzzle. So that's fun, right? You know, but some of the data for this I think pushes it up to 23 or 2400 feet per second. And while we could increase our charge a little bit, I don't really think that this specific powder is going to give us the maximum performance. So it's kind of fruitless to try and push it and still not achieve what we could with another powder. So as far as using this bullet and this powder combination, I'm going to leave it on the back burner as something we can come back to later. But I believe we can test out a couple other powders we have on hand and end up with something much better. Let's take a look at our brass. We've already seen these primers starting to flatten out. And actually these are the 6 here. We can see all these have craters. This was a different bolt carrier group, but these 6 don't have that characteristic. So these were the 6 I shot that day because I was using a different bolt carrier group. So we see they're starting to flatten out, but no harsh ejector swipes or anything else really on the brass. So we are starting to reach the pressure signs, but nothing major. That's why I ended up, just loading up a bunch of these at one point. But I believe, again, we can do much better with stuff that we have on hand as far as reaching the potential of this bullet here. So there we go. That's our bullet exploration with the heavy pistol for now. We have some good starting ground we can run with. We definitely know what does and doesn't work now. And I think from here we can do a lot more honing in on specific bullets to achieve their maximum potential while still shooting economically and having fun and hitting what we're aiming at the same time. So anyways, if you enjoy this sort of content, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to go and check me out over on Instagram. That is at DummyRoundOfficial. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you spending your time here. Stay tuned for more, and we will see you in the next video. Have a good one!